Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Sturgis, and the purpose of this video is to discuss your first assignment for Business 560. If other people find this content on descriptive statistics useful, that is great as well. So I thought I would make two videos since it would be rather long if I tried to add this together. So in the first video here, I'll just talk about the assignment and I'll talk about these data types. And in the second video, I will talk about how you actually conduct the analysis in Excel. So to start with, you can see at the top of the document, it's got a little chart that tells you about the different data types. And I will preface this by saying that I did not write this particular assignment. And so that's why I don't necessarily agree with the way that these different data types are categorized or defined. But I will try to explain them with my understanding of these different data types. So you can see that one, they're at the top, they're broken up into qualitative and quantitative. Under qualitative, you have nominal, ordinary, ordinal, and binary variables. I would not call these types of variables qualitative data. An example of qualitative data would be data from an interview project, so the transcript of an interview or something like that. A nominal variable, an ordinal variable, you can still conduct descriptive statistics analysis with it. So I don't think that it qualifies as qualitative data. With that said, so the first one here, a nominal variable. So you can see that there's no order or ranking sequence. So the examples that it gives are gender and race. So a nominal variable means that things are just different. So there's no ranking. So race is a good example. If you were to measure that as white, African American, Hispanic, etc., it doesn't make sense to say that one race is better than another race or whatever. They're just different. So that's what a nominal variable is. Ordinal variable, the second type here, there's an ordered rank. So that means that it makes sense to rank this variable. So an example of an ordinal variable that you'll see when you do the assignment. So for example, job satisfaction, if you measure that on a scale of 1 to 4, where 1 is very dissatisfied, 2 is moderately satisfied, 3 is somewhat satisfied, and 4 is very satisfied, or something like that, you've ranked that. So that's what an ordinal variable is. The difference is between nominal and ordinal variables. Again, nominal, just different. Ordinal, it makes sense to rank. The third type, a binary variable. The defining characteristic of that is that there's just two possible values, typically coded as 1 and 0. So either you pass the test or you didn't pass the test. When you look at the data file, attrition, so that's coded 1 and 0. Either you left the company, you didn't leave the company, things of that nature. Moving on to the other two types of data types. So they call this discrete and continuous. The major difference here you can see is they're saying that discrete variables, a finite number of values is possible, and the values cannot be subdivided meaningfully. Another way of saying that is that a discrete variable, and I would call that an interval level variable, is that there's no true zero. And of course, without that true zero, you really shouldn't multiply, divide, add, subtract, so forth. as compared to a continuous variable. And you can see that in the definition over here that it can be meaningfully subdivided into finer and finer increments. Um, so an example of a continuous variable, and I would also call that an interval ratio level variable, is that um, you can multiply, you can divide, you can add, you can subtract, those types of things. Um, so example there would be money. So, $100 is half of $200. $200 is half of $400. So of course you can add, you can subtract, you can multiply, you can divide. And of course, mathematically, it's because of that true zero value. Um, so that's the first part. The second part that I'll draw your attention to here is that it specifically says in the assignment to conduct these calculations in MS Excel. Um, I, as I stated, I didn't write this assignment, and as a data analyst, if I were actually going to do this analysis, I would not do the calculations in Excel. I would do them in a statistical package such as SPSS or SAS or something of that nature. Um, the advantage to knowing how to do this in Excel, though, is that almost everybody has access to Excel. So whatever job you have, you'll be able to do these types of calculations. So looking a little bit further at the assignment, so it tells you to look at these 5 variables. And then if you look down here, it also tells you to look at age. One thing that I will point out here is that, so it says to do a descriptive statistics analysis on the employee number variable. And so when you get started on the assignment and you look at that variable, you'll notice that it's just a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so forth that's assigned to each employee. And so I would say that this was, whoever created this assignment is just putting that in as a teaching aid. And what I mean by that is that if you think about it, that's kind of a meaningless variable. It's not something that you're going to do anything with. If you were doing this type of analysis for your job, you wouldn't actually do a descriptive statistics analysis on someone's employee number. It's not a useful thing to know what the mean employee number or what the standard deviation is, that type of thing. So when you do the assignment again, I would leave out the employee number part. The other thing that I would point out here, so for each one of these, it says that, say what the data type is. And so, for example, monthly income, we've already said, when you look at the data set, so that's measured in dollars, and that is a interval ratio level of measurement and what they're calling a continuous variable up here. So you're going to do that with job satisfaction, skip employee number, do that for attrition, job role. So fairly straightforward, I think. The second part here where they say to generate some insights about this particular variable and summarize your findings. So the way that you're going to do that is that you're going to calculate the descriptive statistics. And so I would do it the same way that they tell you to do it for age. So for age, do this for all the variables, calculate the mean, which is just the mathematical average, the median. The median is just defined as the middle value in a distribution. So in other words, if you were to put the numbers in a list from smallest to largest, the median is just the number that's in the middle. So again, it's just the middle value. Both the mean and the median are measures of central tendency. And when we actually calculate some, we can look and talk a little bit about why you would have two measures of central tendency. Um, Also calculate the standard deviation. You can think of standard deviation, a not quite technically correct definition of standard deviation is that it is the average distance between values and the mean in a set of values. So basically, what it is telling you is, are the values clustered together? If your standard deviation is low relative to the mean, then that means that your values tend to cluster around the mean. On the other hand, if your standard deviation is high relative to the mean, that means that your data set is more dispersed. Your values are more dispersed. There tends to be more variance in that data set. Finally, the last thing that you do is you calculate the range, and the range is just the minimum value to the maximum value. So to calculate the range, you just calculate the minimum value and the maximum value, and the range is technically defined as just max times max minus min. So when we actually do this analysis in Excel, we can look at range a little bit. Number 2 here, so you're going to create a bar plot of age. So that's just a table. I'm sorry, that's just a chart. Same thing with number 3, a box plot. So we'll look at that, how you do that in Excel. And then finally, write a note on your findings. And basically in that, you're just going to interpret number 1 above with all of these variables for age, and then for the ones in part 1 up here, these variables up here. You're just going to talk about if there's anything important that you know or anything that's interesting. So for example, with age or with monthly income, what kind of conclusions can you draw? You know, what's the mean, what's the standard deviation, that type of thing. So hopefully this has given you some insight and made this assignment make a little bit more sense. And in the second video, as I said, I will talk about how you actually perform these calculations in Excel.